Hello and welcome to the latest Breaking Barriers. And those eagle-eyed amongst you may realise I'm here solo, and that's because I want to share with you some strategies, tips, techniques for a barrier that I come across regularly with the women I work with. So often in this series, we talk to fantastic, inspirational women who have overcome major systemic barriers, that overcome bias in their day and daily work. And that's something we do talk about, being the only in the room, being perceived as aggressive, too assertive, whatever it may be. And I thought today, because I have seen this come up so often with women I work with, and actually I'm seeing it constantly on social media, in the press, I want to tackle imposter syndrome. Because, yeah, those external barriers, we absolutely have to break them down. We have to make it easier for women to excel, to get into leadership positions. And we also need to do some work on the stuff that's going on inside too, because sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And I am going to be talking about imposter syndrome. And we will get in a moment to why I hate that name. We're going to debunk loads of myths. I'm going to share with you some stories of people I've worked with. And most importantly, I'm going to give you absolutely spot on strategies that have helped the women that I work with, that have helped me to overcome these mental handcuffs. I was chatting with a friend, Nicole, and she came up with the term mental handcuffs that are getting in the way of you being as brilliant as you can be. And of course, this applies to everybody. Um, we will come to that myth in a moment. So, what is going on in the world? Why is everybody saying I have imposter syndrome? What is happening? It's actually a complete fiction. So, we will talk about why it's a fiction in a moment. There is a reality behind it, and it is holding many people back. Like I have seen with women in the C-suite, I've seen them not wanting to speak up. I've seen them, in the boardroom, not speaking up. I've seen them not wanting to share their stories on stage. So I often help women that want to get past that fear of public speaking. Um, it can be in all kinds of ways. And I've actually experienced it quite recently myself. Those of you that have followed any of my stuff may know that I've been challenging myself to do things that scare me. And so I have been experiencing an imposter when doing some of those things, but especially stand up. So we're going to talk about all of that. And of course, leave you with some amazing tools and strategies. But first of all, the myths. Number one is imposter syndrome is not a syndrome. So it was two psychologists that came up with this term, I think in the 90s or maybe before, but even they regret calling it imposter syndrome. It's not a syndrome, it's not an illness, it's not um, something like that. It's actually a fear. That's what we are experiencing. Fear, nerves. I'm scared I can't do something. I'm scared I'm going to look stupid. Um, and so when we give it this big name, imposter syndrome, we give it loads of power because, oh, I've got imposter syndrome. That sounds like something, oh, I can't really do anything about that. Well, that's absolute nonsense. When we recognize, actually, I'm afraid. I'm scared of looking stupid. Whatever it is, then we can start to tackle it and realize that it's a feeling, not a fact. Another myth that I I see, and probably people maybe believe, is that it impacts women more than men, which is not true either. So, in research, it's been shown to be fairly equal across the board. I think what maybe is true is that as women, we are more likely to express it. So here's one of the disadvantages of being a man, in the way we are set up as a society currently, is that you're not supposed to show that you're afraid. You're not supposed to share your fears. You're not supposed to show vulnerability. Well, we know that's a load of nonsense. Says who? And when we start to do things, then life improves for everybody, because when you share a fear, then it it shines a light on it and it makes it smaller. It helps other people see that actually, other people have these fears too. It's not just me. I'm not alone, and so maybe I can do something about it. And so as women as well, we have been taught to play small, to not be as confident, as assertive, to say yes, I'm amazing at this. It's been uh, demonstrated to us. We have been trained to get on like, oh, maybe I should show that I'm not confident. Maybe um, I'll not set myself up for a fall. I'll not be too big headed if I show that actually I'm scared, and those kinds of things. So these are some of the myths and legends that we're dealing with when it comes to imposterism or fear. um, and and that idea that it is a feeling, not a fact, is such an important one. Like, it is not a syndrome, it is how you are feeling in this current moment. So imagine you're going to do a presentation. Say you have to get up in front of a conference, or in front of the board, or in front of your own team. I have experienced that fear in front of all three of those situations. And so you might be feeling like, oh, I'm going to mess up. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And so you've got a choice here. You could say to yourself, oh, I've got imposter syndrome. I don't think I should be doing this. And obviously, you're going to talk yourself into a hole and lose your confidence and not be able to feel you can go for it in the same way. And it's a feeling, it's an overinflated feeling, and it's not actually true. Equally, you could say to yourself, I am Beyonce, Adele, whoever it is, whoever you see as totally confident, Michelle Obama, um, whoever, Angela Merkel, you pick your person. And as I think of all those people, I remember reading each one of those people have said at some stage, I have felt like an imposter. So it's good news to know that you're in good company. But saying that I'm as confident as those people is just as much a fiction as saying I'm an imposter. But which one's going to make you feel better? And so this is the reality of the difference between a fact and a feeling. And so either way you look at it, saying I'm an imposter or I feel as confident as Michelle Obama, neither are true, but which one is going to make you feel better? They're both feelings. And so we can lean into a different feeling. We can choose a different feeling. And that's why this is such an important topic to talk about, because it's something within your power to change. We can change how we feel. by changing how we think about things, by catching things, by making a shift. And so there was a funny example of this the other a couple of weeks ago. You may have seen, sorry, that I interviewed Nicole Osborne. So Nicole is a LinkedIn expert and coach. She worked her way up to director level in the marketing world at quite a young age. She worked for some fantastic, huge brands. And before we spoke, we did talk about, we did some preparation. We talked about how she felt about this interview, about doing interviews. And she was doing mine and another interview. And she was like, oh, I tend to get myself into this headspace where I'm like, am I good enough? Am I enough? I feel that imposter. And so I was quite surprised about this because I know her quite well. And I know she's blooming amazing. She has nothing to feel that imposter about. She absolutely nails interviews. She's brilliant at what she does. A bit like any of you watching here. And so we talked about what's really going on and how to look at it differently. And so I shared with the tips I'm about to share with you. And she went on to do quite a big profile interview as well as mine. And she came back to me and she was like, oh my God, Sinead, I cannot believe the difference just those changes in thinking made for how I approached that and how confident I felt and how I was able to deliver. And I'm sharing that example with you because you may think when I share some of my client examples, oh, well, she's been working with them for ages and she can make a big difference over that time. But actually, this is one of the areas that I get results really quickly with the people I work with because we can tweak and change some very simple things and then you can start to feel really differently about how you step up in the boardroom or how you approach that conversation. And some of the places I've seen this really rear its head is when you're in a room with people that you perceive to be more senior than you are. And so, yeah, there's structures and hierarchies in organizations, or you may be like I work with quite a few people that, have dealings with politicians and quite high profile people. And so there can be a tendency to feel like, oh, why would anybody want to listen to me? Why am I good enough? And that, again, we have to remember is a feeling. And so we're going to look at, well, what's driving that feeling? And then I'm going to give you some top tips for how to handle it. So what's driving that feeling? What is it that triggers that imposter that makes you go, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I'm going to be found out. I'm going to look stupid. Well, I've already mentioned that it is fear. You might want to call it nerves. You are afraid of something. And I've always found it really funny that I've not checked this lately, but I used to do, I still do a lot of coaching for people for public speaking, but I used to do public speaking training programs and trainer programs. And people would come into those training sessions really tense and really nervous and really afraid. And I can totally understand it. Like me going to do the stand-up course, that's how I felt, really tense, nervous, afraid, because we have a fear. And I used to share with them, I used to ask them, what's the number one fear in this country? So I was doing the training, usually in the UK, also in Canada and North America. And and I would ask them, what do you think is the number one fear here? Now, I don't know if it's necessarily true in North America, but it could be. But in the UK, ridiculously at that stage, and maybe still is, the number one fear is spiders. And for anybody that lives here in the UK and Ireland, you know we don't have dangerous spiders. So, ridiculous fear. But the number two fear was always public speaking. Whenever I checked the stats and the research, public speaking was the number two fear. And the number three fear, death. So so quite literally, people fear public speaking more than they fear dying. And that to me feels completely ridiculous. Well, it felt ridiculous until I did my first stand up gig and I actually felt like I might die before I did it. But I caught myself and I used the techniques that I'm going to show you. And I managed to bring it round and I ended up actually really enjoying it. And that's the thing, you can shift from that place of fear to a place of actually enjoying it. And that's what I love helping my clients achieve, is when they go, oh, I never thought I could do this. And now I feel amazing and I realize I can. And, you know, I managed my mindset, I managed to do it, and I really nailed it and delivered it. So fear is the trigger of this. What that fear does is triggers our mind monkeys or saboteurs. So when we're feeling under stress, then we're more likely to be very judgmental of ourselves, very harsh on ourselves. So be a total, nitpick, see all the things that we've done wrong, see the things that we believe and perceive we're no good at. And so that's where we tend to go. As well as that self-judge, we have a team of saboteurs behind it, ready to jump in. And we've all got different flavours of them. And some that I think that are really relevant to this imposter feeling would be if you have a tendency for people pleasing. So I've been discussing this with a couple of clients recently where they've got a real fear of letting somebody down. So to the point that one even said recently that she hates getting complimented or positive feedback because then she's constantly worried that she's going to let them down. So that is a people pleaser tendency. And so, of course, if you're afraid you're going to let people down, then that's going to trigger a lot of imposter type feelings. Another type of saboteur that might hit in this situation is if you're an overachiever. So great to be a high achiever, not so great to be an overachiever. And so overachievers tend to set themselves goals and targets that are completely unrealistic. And so if you're always setting yourself mega goals that you can never achieve, of course you're going to think, well, I'm not good enough. I never reached this incredible pinnacle of success. Therefore, that means that I am not enough. So you may be experiencing a people pleaser, you may be experiencing an overachiever, or another one that can really impact and trigger this imposter feeling is a perfectionist. So if you set yourself that everything has to be just right, every I dotted, every T crossed, if you were to stumble across a word, for instance, doing a presentation, and you have a very high perfectionist tendency, then you're probably going to zoom in and hone in on that and distort that out of all proportion and cause yourself to feel really stressed out and beat yourself up. Oh my goodness, I was so terrible. I couldn't even get my words out. And one of the things that you probably know that I go bang on about a lot is perimenopause and menopause. And so one of the, one well-known symptom is brain fog and memory loss. And so you're going to be stumbling over words all over the place. or you're going to trigger symptoms because you're under stress and that kind of thing. And so being able to manage that at this particular time, and I've noticed that women that are at that stage in life, it can be a really triggering time for that imposter fear. And so I really want to help you manage it, because what's possible when you get over this, when you get past this, is you realize, well, I'm flipping amazing and I can do this and I can go for that. And yeah, I may not be perfect at it, but who likes perfection anyway? It's not even a real thing. In fact, I'll let you into a little secret. Think about it. People actively dislike perfect people. Like, they're the ones that get slagged off behind their backs. So people love real people. And so these are some of the things that we can remember to help us deal with this imposter. So if you would love to go from being afraid of speaking up, or get out of your own way to do presentations, or put your hand up for that next job opportunity and promotion, like, these are the things that taming this imposter can really help you with. So what can we do about it? Well, I have come up with a little acronym. I love an acronym to help you remember. So we are going to slap that imposter down. We are not going to let it control us. So we are going to look at the S, which is the source. We're going to look at how you label it. We're going to look at the action you take. And we are going to practice this until it becomes second nature. So that's what the slap is. And this is my little strategy to help you tame that imposter. So the S is for source, and I've just been talking about this. What has triggered this imposter for you? What are you really afraid of? And is it that you've got your people pleaser up in arms? Is your judge getting in your way, telling you you're not going to be good enough? Is it the overachiever? Is it the perfectionist? Like, are these gang of saboteurs in your brain pulling you back and keeping you in your box? Because do you know what they are afraid of? They are afraid of you pushing outside of your comfort zone and perhaps looking a bit silly, which rarely ever happens. But they equate that consequence, that, maybe social embarrassment, with death, with real hurt and pain. In fact, the part of your brain that lights up when you're socially embarrassed is just next to the part of your brain that lights up when you feel serious physical pain. And so you can understand why we've got this a bit distorted. But when we can identify the source, then we can start to see what's really going on. So look back at the last few times that you felt that imposter, that you felt that fear, that you felt those nerves, and say, okay, what was I really afraid of? What was going on here? Which of these saboteurs might have been causing me some trouble? And when you can start to see those patterns and see what's going on, you can start to recognize the difference between fact and feeling. These things are creating strong, palpable, visceral feelings, but they're not actually telling the truth. So that's the S in SLAP. The L in SLAP is label. Please, for the love of God, stop calling this imposter syndrome. It makes it so big and powerful. And so what you can do instead is give it a label that shrinks it, that leeches away its power. So I was talking about this with a client the other day, and she decided to call hers John. You can choose whatever you want. It could be Judge Judy. It could be, hysterical Hetty. It could be whatever. But the big thing is by giving it a label, recognizing it for what it is, it creates some separation between this feeling and you, and it reduces some of the power so that you can say, oh, there's Judge Judy, taking up power in my brain, taking up, she's living there rent free. No, Judy, it's time for you to pack your bags and get out of here. And so even having a bit of fun with it shifts you into a different brain space. And I always think, like, the funnier name you can give it, the less powerful it is. But also, when we're having fun, when we're having a laugh at something, it's very hard for that feeling to really take hold, and it shifts your brain into a more creative, more open, more relaxed space. So the funnier the label, the better. So out with the imposter syndrome, in with Judge Judy, or whatever it is that works for you. So we have sourced it, we've labeled it. Now we're going to take some action on it. And the label itself alone might be enough to help you. But here's some action you can take. So you have realized that this is a feeling, not a fact, that it's you've given it this name. So what you're recognizing is that your brain is lying to you. Your brain is making this out to be a much bigger deal than it really is. And so basically you're going, hold on, brain, you're telling me lies here. What's the truth? And so one of the things I'm gonna go for anybody in the UK and Ireland. I'm gonna reference a children's TV show. I'm gonna go a bit Blue Peter on you. Here's one I've made earlier. So what happens when you're feeling that imposter is all focus. The fear makes your focus go very small and narrow, and it makes you focus on all the things that you think you don't have, you think you're missing, you think that you can't do, instead of recognizing the things you can. So all my vision and focus is on this. Oh, I've never done this exact thing before, or I don't have a qualification in that, or um, I don't know how to speak confidently about this, or I don't know how to manage every situation around this. And all my attention is on what I can't do, and what I think I can't do, and what I think I'm missing. And that's blocking out. And I'm going to add to my wonderful drawing here. So that's blocking out the big picture. And that big picture is actually all the things, all the knowledge, the skills, the strengths, the experience I have that may be relevant to this. And if we can stop focusing on this, let me just get my cloth, all the things I'm missing, and we start looking at the big picture, we can see, yes, I may not have done this exact thing, but I do know this about this, and I have done this that's like that before, and I'm really strong in this area, so I know that's going to help me. And I know that I'm great at thinking on my feet, or I know that I'm a good communicator, and I know that worst comes to worst, I can always say, I don't know, and I'll get back to you. Let's look at the bigger picture here. So instead of focusing on that little bit that was obscuring all of this great knowledge, skills, strengths, experience, traits that we have, we we've been focusing on what we're missing. So move that out of the way, move your line of focus, and you get to see the big picture. And you see, when you start to focus on what you do have, what you do bring, what is possible, then everything shifts for you, because you realize you are tapping into a well of amazing strength and capability, and that you have learned everything from scratch before. Like, you couldn't walk and talk at one stage. We've had to learn everything from the beginning, and this is just the same. And the final bit of the action, so we've realised it's a lie, we're recognising the truth, we're redirecting our energy towards what's the evidence that I probably can do this, that I've done stuff like this before. And something else you can do to bolster that is to ask yourself, well, what's my why for doing this? And so I'm doing a stand-up gig on Sunday, and I'm not perfect. Like, I can still feel myself falling down this a bit, but I know to catch myself and get myself out of it. And I was like, oh, what am I doing this for? Why am I putting myself under so much stress? And then I went, hold on a minute. Yeah, why am I doing this? What is my why for doing this? And it's because I want to challenge myself. I want to experience doing something really different. I want to maybe feel like I'm not good at something, and to learn and grow and enjoy the experience of that. I want to feel the fear and do it anyway and get the adrenaline rush and all of that. So, what is your why? Why would this be a good thing for you to do? What is it going to give you or get you? How is it going to bring you forward? So we've sourced it, we've labelled it, we've taken action on it. Now we're going to practice it. So this is not a one-off process. This is whenever you feel the fear, feel what you've been calling imposter syndrome. When you feel that fear, you're going to do this practice. And the more you do it, the quicker it becomes. So, like, when I've been talking about what I've been experiencing, this has become really well rehearsed. It's not fully second nature. I think we will always feel fears, and we need to. And it's not always going to be completely unconscious and natural. But the more we do it, the easier it becomes, and the better we get at it. And I feel like we do need to feel it sometimes, because otherwise we can become complacent, we can become cocky, we can become the people that we don't want to be, the people that don't see that there may be, they could do with feeling like an imposter sometimes. I think we can think of a few politicians that fall in that camp. So that is how you're going to slap that imposter in the face, slap it down, get it out of your way so you can get on with being amazing. And like, this is how I have helped women go from being terrified to public speaking to I've had women keynote in front of hundreds, in some cases thousands of people. So to go from being terrified public speaking to actually going, I'm a badass, I'm amazing, I can do this, and absolutely nailing it. And that has changed the trajectory of their career. I have had women go from being afraid in the boardroom, not afraid, like they were good, they could do it, but they weren't speaking up in the way that they should be. They were holding back, they maybe weren't sharing their opinions as much as they could be. They were holding themselves and the business back, quite frankly. And now they have no problem going in and nailing it, being themselves, being able to put their point across, being able to confidently say, yeah, this is the case. No quiet explaining, no fear, no over explaining, which was certainly happening with a couple of the people I worked with. And now they are owning it in the boardroom. So this is what you can expect if you put this into practice, but it takes for you to take action on it. So take the slap, use it to slap that imposter and make a difference for your life. And I would love for you to share with me what you do with this. And I don't care when you come back to me, but come back to me and say, oh my God, Sinead, that made such a difference for me, because that makes me so happy. I will celebrate you. I will celebrate that this has worked, and we'll both be very happy that this has happened. So, thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to hear your success stories from applying my tools and techniques to uh, slap that imposter down. And I will look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. I'm having a wee break from the Breaking Barriers series, so there will be none next week, but we will be back in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye bye.